Hello, Charles Murray here with another episode of the Blissful Parent Report. And today we're going to be discussing 4 ways to deal with disrespectful behavior that you may be experiencing with your kids. And the goal of this program is to help you to reduce the stress and frustration that you might be feeling at this moment so that you can get on with enjoying the process of raising your children. So the first way of dealing with disrespectful behavior is what's known as a passive response. And a passive response is really a non-confrontational approach to dealing with the problem. And in this example, the parent is just trying to keep the peace and avoid any type of confrontation whatsoever. But the trouble with this is that after a while, the child will lose respect for your authority as a parent. And after a while, they're going to be able to use this to control and manipulate you, maybe even scare you into letting them have their own way. The problem will not just go away unless you do something about it. And doing nothing and expecting things to magically get better is insanity. So just trying to keep the peace, just trying to sort of take that passive response does not solve the problem. In fact, we're really talking about avoidance versus action here. And what's required here is some sort of action, something on your part that's going to tell the child that that is not acceptable behavior and that they're going to have to behave a different way if they're going to get what they want. But instead, the parent is practicing avoidance, hoping that the problem will change, but it never does. So the next type of response here is what's known as an emotional response. And this is where, when the disrespectful behavior happens, you can feel the feelings, the emotions building inside of you and causing frustration to the point where you actually might lash out and let that sort of emotional response come out. And it can come out in small ways such as sighing or eye rolling. Could escalate to the point of maybe a raised voice. You feel tension in your voice. Then it can escalate to the level of yelling or screaming just to get this behavior to stop. Anything. And so what happens is our emotions increase and we have these feelings that after a while become very difficult to control. And what we need in order to solve the problem is we need to be able to rely on our logic or our intelligence to help us, to give us the idea, the solution. What is it that we need to do to stop this behavior, not just now, but from recurring in the future? And what happens is that the more our feelings or our emotions start to build and increase, our ability to think logically and use our intelligence to solve problems decreases. And when you lose your ability to tap into your logic or your intelligence to try to solve the problem, you are now completely cut off from any type of solution. Knowing the right thing to do at the right time completely goes away. So the thing to do is to learn how to control the emotional response so that you can tap back in to your logical thinking as a way of solving the problem. Okay, so the third type of response is what's known as a physical response. And what a physical response is, this is an emotional response that's gone to the next level. An emotional response that's gone beyond your ability to control the emotions and the feelings that are building up inside to where now it finally comes out as a physical action. Now, a very typical type of physical response is spanking. And when I was a child, it was normal to be spanked. That was a very common parenting practice. Not so much now, especially here in North America. Different parts of the world view this differently and use this differently. But here's the thing. Spanking is really a fear-based discipline. The idea is to create fear of consequences so that if the child is acting out in a certain way and you create that fear, then they're going to stop doing it in the future. And that may work temporarily, but here's what happens. After a while, they start to become immune to it. And the only thing that works with a physical response when it stops working as effectively is to increase the level of the physical response to where now it's not just spanking anymore. It could be even hitting or beating or worse. And these are now things that are viewed as very severe forms of child abuse that are not only illegal in a lot of countries, especially here in North America, but are just not conducive to producing a healthy child with good confidence and high self-esteem and responsible members of society in the future. So, as a physical response, you really got to watch that to make sure it does not escalate to that level, and take steps to calm yourself down and to, again, step back into that logical thinking and to think it through and to find solutions. And the fourth type of response is no response, which is really not a solution at all, but it does happen. And a person who's in no response is a parent that is completely given up. They would rather just bury their head in the sand and pretend that this just isn't happening, hoping, praying that this is just gonna go away and stop on its own. And the problem is that it doesn't, because the more you ignore it, the more it's going to continue. This is a parent that's no longer trying to find a solution. They're just trying to get by. And they're very unlikely to even be watching this video because they're not trying to solve the problem. They're just trying to get through life. But the thing is that if you get to this point, it's very scary because it's so apathetic that it's the level of caring could be at risk. And your own well-being and the well-being of your children could be at risk as well. And the idea of just hoping and waiting for it to go away on its own is absolute insanity. And in order for the problem to go away, there needs to be some sort of action taken on the part of the parent as a response to, again, show the child that that behavior is not going to be acceptable and it will eventually stop. So, what if you could learn to tap into a virtually limited supply of solutions for dealing with disrespectful behavior? Look, there's no one-size-fits-all solution. What's working really well for your next-door neighbor or for your sister or your brother's kids might not be the right solution for your kids. And what may have worked for you in the past on a certain given day with a certain situation may not work again in another day or on another situation. Because all situations require a unique response, the right response for that moment. So it's not about finding the perfect how-to that you might read in a book somewhere. It's about learning to tap into your intuition, learning to tap into that logic, that intelligence that's already locked inside of you, and tapping into this virtually unlimited supply of solutions that's already part of you. And the next part of this program, we're going to talk about how you can solve any parenting problem without frustration. So to watch the next part of this video, simply enter your name and your email address in the form below. Click the button, and then we will continue with part 2 of this video on the next page.